All right, let's move now to something that I thought was an absolute dud, and that's Apple's WWDC, their Developer Conference 2026. The headline wasn't a new product for that conference. It was a partnership. Apple has rebuilt Siri from the ground up, powered by Google's Gemini, in a deal reportedly worth $1 billion per year. The company that spent years insisting it could do AI on its own is now running its flagship feature on a competitor's model. Mike, we've talked about Apple's AI plays for a while now. Anything that surprised you from this conference?
Let me start with, I'm just going to read it because it's a brutal TechCrunch take from the article. Apple's racing to catch up while core software frustrations have accumulated. Bad design overhaul, broken research, failed file sharing, inadequate health app, AI is behind, search is behind, blah, blah, blah. It goes on and on and on. You don't want people writing that about you, particularly with what I said. You're a brand. You're known for having, well, you may disagree, having best devices, best hardware, best software out there. At least that's your brand. Best user experience. Turns out you're failing, at least according to this writer, across all of those, right? I think a lot of people have criticized Apple for falling behind in AI, but you know what I'm going to say? Their business model, and this has been their identity, like Rita says, is brand, customer experience, owning the channels, owning the app store, owning the devs that have to put their apps onto their app stores to get to those paying, important Apple users. They're premium users. So if Apple, given all its struggles, has decided we are not good at AI, actually, that's not our strength, it's not our capability, it's not a bad strategic move to partner with someone who is, which goes to your point earlier. Maybe people are underestimating Google in this whole game.
Yeah.
And you're saying they might have the capabilities to win this thing if there were a winner take all. They're at least primarily positioned with cash, customer channels, B2C channels, growing B2B channels. And so, again, this is a classic make or buy. Do you make it on your own when you've been struggling with search, file sharing, all this other stuff? Or do you partner with someone who already knows how to do search better than anyone on the planet, whose Gemini models are getting better by the second, who they're multimodal? That's where they're going with Omni, if you remember. That's going to be probably the experience an Apple user is going to expect. So I don't see that as a weakness. I see that as, you might look at this as a antitrust issue coming up, that people might look at this. Should those two really be partnered? But if you really looked into the fundamentals of their business models, it's just supplier relationship, right? And buyer relationship. The thing I liked, and you know what our application is, where we're talking about strategy and we're building it to comply with EU regulations, compliance, data concerns. I like the privacy-centric thing, if they can hold to it. And as long as there's no jailbreak for government and the rest behind the scenes. So I'm a fan of that. The quote was, data is only used to execute the request, and that's it. And I think this is going to be a big problem for Anthropic. They just had an announcement this week, earlier, where they said for those neuro models, they're actually going to start collecting data, even if they may be destroyed after 30 days because of the concerns around Fable and Mythos, right? So I think this data and data privacy thing is going to be real, particularly with the culture wars boiling up.
Yeah.
And with EU in general, it's always been. And our approach is to comply with the EU, and then you meet everybody's standards, right? I mean, you get a regulatory moat for real, right?
I think someone in the EU got fined $400 million this week for a data breach. It didn't make the story, but I was reading a little bit about it. So, that stuff, it costs companies a lot of money when these things happen, potentially, because they can get fines. It costs them, of course, class action lawsuits. It costs them customers sometimes. So all those things are real tangible losses of money. And so it's going to be real important it's a really big deal when a company hands you its private data to another company and trusts you with it. and because it's another chink in the armor potentially. I watched Marques Brownlee, his review of the WWDC. I don't know if you're familiar with him. His channel is MKBHD, a really good tech YouTuber, a really popular, one of the biggest ones out there. And a couple things struck me about this. One, he didn't mention Gemini at all through this whole review, which I found strange. I don't know if that's something maybe Apple has some sort of fiat where he can't talk about it. I don't know. It's possible. And maybe it's not noteworthy enough. Maybe the normal person doesn't care that it's Gemini underneath. The second thing I took from this is that, man, you guys are just now getting, you're just now getting. Android. So if my Ring app has multiple times that it's gone off over the course of the day since I looked at it, it will stack those together in the same bar. So I can do a drop down and see them all. You guys didn't have that. You just had notification until this update. And then you also had I've had now for 4 or 5 years, I've been able to take an image and tell the phone that I wanted to do a search on that thing, and it could bring up web results, store results, where I could find out what it was, buy it, whatever. You guys are getting that just now too. So, 4 or 5 years after I've had on Android. Anyway.
Is this Jason's way, a roundabout way of saying this is Apple's admission that Android is better?
Might be. It might be. I don't know. I don't know that Android's better. I know that there's better options, both hardware-wise and user-friendliness and customizability than Apple. And I also know we're heading more towards homogenization as well.
Yeah. And it turns out it looks like users prefer Gemini. That's interesting.
Yeah. Who knew? I don't know. There's some good things in there. I think as Apple users, you'll be happy that you finally have some of these features that I've had for a while. The integration with Siri seems good. It seems like you're going to be able to have Siri look at your emails, whether that be Gmail. I'm sure it'll be able to look at Gmail. It seems like anything with a hook or with a permission to allow Siri to interact with can. So for instance, I can have Gemini interact with Spotify and it can run Spotify for me. I just have to tell it, play a song in Spotify. So it sounds like Siri's going to be able to do that same stuff with apps that allow it to. So it'll be able to look at your Gmail or your iMail, whatever you guys call it, and look at, schedule appointments for you on that calendar or this calendar, or do all of that kind of stuff, look up your contact information, that kind of thing. So I think that'll be really handy and useful. And then there's stuff like the whole, what's it called? It's the glass stuff, the liquid glass. Like there's now a slider to make it more glass or less glass. Like who cares? I mean, maybe it looks good. I don't know. I don't know if you even have that stuff or care. Another thing that I took from Marques Brownlee's video that I thought was really interesting is that the one generation ago was, I think the 16 was the iPhone 16 was the generation. And that was the phone that was brought out and built from the ground up for Apple Intelligence. And now the new Siri won't run on anything below the iPhone 17. So if you have the phone built for Apple Intelligence, you can't run this new Siri AI on it. It won't have it. So just one generation later.
It just gives you a reason to go buy the next one.
Go buy the next one, yeah.
Apple users have the money, by the way.
Oh, of course, yeah. No,
that's the stereotype.
I used to work for a Porsche dealership, and when cars were first getting CarPlay and Android Auto, it was typically one or the other. It was very rarely both. Now, pretty much all of them have both. But Porsche in specific, I remember they didn't want anything to do with Android Auto because it didn't have their customer base, right? It's a real thing. I mean, it's a real thing where certain people have iPhone, and it's because they have, I don't know, a preconceived notion of what it represents, of the status symbol it brings. I just think they don't know anything about computer hardware. I don't know.
I've always had both. Well, particularly since I've been working, my corporate phones have mostly been Apple, but my private Android.
Yeah. That's good.
So I kind of see the merits of both, but the question is, what price are you willing to pay as well?
Maybe. What do you mean by that?
Maybe.
They're both the same price. They have flagships and competing models all the way down.
Yeah, but my point is, like my daughters, their $200 version can perform on par with the other ones, right? Of Apple, right?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. Probably true. Hey, You've just watched a clip from Show Your Priors podcast. Check out our main channel for full episodes. We have a new one every Tuesday. If you liked what you saw, give us a like and subscribe. It's free for you and helps us out a ton. Did we miss something during our discussions? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.